Hey Tom.
Hey.
We're here in a quite small room,
Yes,
as you can hear.
Yeah.
But Void and Vista Strands, very much championed by Ty on Sonic Talk. He said, You really got to check it out. And I just walked by and I saw it. And so here we are.
Here we are indeed, yes. Yeah, Ty did quite a lot of favours for us by kind of promoting it as much as he did. He absolutely loves it, which is a hell of a testimonial. But yeah, first product, first gear show, here we are. And it's been a very good reception overall.
It's an unusual, is it Kontact-based? It is.
Kontact instrument, yeah, made of 32 sound sources over 2 layers, which you can blend between. Full effects engine with 2 filters with switchable modes, 2 LFOs with cross-modulation, voice stacking with detuning and width, a dedicated lo-fi section, 3 stage effects chain with basically all the effects Kontact has to offer, and a dedicated reverb and delay space as well, and then your standard kind of envelopes, amp, pitch, filter.
And it's got a real sort of look to it. You've obviously spent a lot of time on the design and the vibe.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time kind of trying to make it unique and to stand out a bit, hence the hand, which is my girlfriend's hand actually.
Oh, well, nice to keep it in,
not
in the family, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's very atmospheric, and I've heard some of the demos. Have you got something you can play us?
I can just have a bit of a noodle. I'm not much of a player, to be honest, but I can have a quick noodle. So all of the presets, there are hundreds of presets, but all of the presets are designed to be have mod whale assignments to them already. So I'll try and do a little bit of playing just to kind of show you the basic stuff and get a bit of two-handed work going on here. But like. That kind of thing.
It sounds like there's some real strings in there somewhere. I mean, what are...
So it is real strings. It's a combination of real strings and, well, I'll tell you what, if I go through these sound sources with you. So what we've got at the top here is the top 8 are real sources, which are kind of unusually played articulations of real instruments. So
Right.
you've got stuff like acoustic guitars that are being bowed, acoustic guitars that have been detuned and then e-bowed, vibraphone that's being bowed, viola that's being played in all sorts of weird tuning and weird kind of articulations, and then a whole bunch of basically stuff along those lines coming from real instruments. And then after that, you've got a bank of 16 of similarly designed things, but with a slightly more kind of effects-driven edge. So they will be organic at their root, but then have gone through all sorts of different effects chains and stuff like that. Still multi-sampled, like.
And is that sampled at source with all the processing? You're not processing.
Depends. Like there's a bit of a mixed bag. Like there's a whole bunch of different techniques that we did to get this kind of variety of sounds. Some of it being right from the source, some of it being like just effects chains, some of it being like very well thought out kind of manipulations of multiple different original sources all blended into a single articulation. And then at the bottom, you've just got 8 kind of utility synth waves, which you can layer into patches to basically, add a big super saw onto it. And stuff like that. And then.
Well, let's hear some more.
Let's hear some more. Okay, we'll go down to the next preset. So Discovered Beauty. This actually makes use of one of our kind of really fun features, which is called Pitch Lock, which is just this little button here. So what that does is it allows us to play samples from basically the wrong pitch, re-pitched up and transposed to the pitch that you're currently playing.
Right,
so
which is a very specific sound.
Yeah, so if I play C3, for example, and normally what you'd expect is the sample of C3 to play back. If I pitch this down by 12 semitones, it's going to play the C2 sample but pitched up 12 semitones.
Right.
So an example of that here is on this patch, which is, so if I just go. I'll tell you what, I'm going to just do that a bit of an octave higher. So yeah, lots of movement, lots of motion that you wouldn't necessarily get if you were just playing back the correct samples for that pitch. If I show you, for example, if I turn that off, so if I turn this pitch lock off and then I play the same chord I just played at the beginning, That's it pitched down 36 semitones. This is the sample that it would be otherwise if it was at the correct pitch. So if I turn this back on and go down, you're going to hear the same pitch but with a different sample set.
Okay, interesting, yeah.
And that basically gives us a whole bunch of sound design techniques that we can do specifically because of the kind of highly textured nature of the sounds. If these were really clean sounds, that wouldn't necessarily be very interesting. But because we've done all this kind of quite janky, unusual playing style, loads of texture, loads of variety, loads of movement in the sounds, it basically means that there's a whole lot of life in the rest of the keyboard that you wouldn't otherwise hear unless you use this technique.
So are you sampling all these, where do you sample them? Are you sampling in the orchestral rooms or specific spaces?
In a variety of spaces, but most of this one was done at John's studio, who's Ty's friend who kind of...
Doing any in a boxy room like this?
Definitely not doing it in a boxy room like this, no. Mostly capturing it very dead and capturing it... What we really want is kind of like quite an intimate, close-mic'd, slightly kind of vulnerable approach to this instead of it being these big stacked kind of multiple mics in a room with a whole orchestra thing. We're much more interested in a very close mic'd like single instrument or a tastefully mic'd single instrument which we can then expand using the engine rather than it being like, oh, here's 16 different microphones of a room playing the same thing and you end up using just 2 of them anyway. So it makes the library a bit smaller and it also means that we can kind of do a lot more in the engine without kind of it all disintegrating, basically.
Well, let's have another sound then.
Okay, let's have another sound. Let's go with...
So, I mean, these are very atmospheric and very sort of, like you say, there's a vibe to them, which is obviously what you're going for,
yes,
right?
Yes, it definitely has a character. It definitely is its own thing. It does a lot of different sounds. It has the capability of doing a whole bunch of different stuff, but I mean, its strengths are pads, atmospheres, textures and stuff like that, and also bass. It's very good at bass, but it can do everything really, but like that, I'd say that's its strong points. Let's try this one here, which is making use of a kind of reversed convolution. But then we've also got, quite a lot of bass and stuff like that. So if I go in here, go with bass, let's try something like this. Hopefully this won't be too loud for you. Oh, I played that polyphonically, that was silly. So it's got some,
there's some fundamental sort of sign work in there by the sound of it.
Exactly, because we've got the two, we've got 2 synth sound sources playing, just a sub to add bass and an ensemble, which is a big multi-sampled superstore thing. Because we've got those synth waves in there as well, we can kind of make big basses and stuff like that, and still run it through our same engine, and still mix it with the kind of organic textural stuff as well, if you want to. So,
I mean, you've launched with a single library here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously plans for more, presumably. Well, actually, what's the sort of footprint, the gigabyte size?
So, because of our sampling technique, what we've done is we've gone multi-samples for a single microphone. And what that means is it only comes in at about 3 gigabytes.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. So which is great for people who have got lots of libraries that are, pushing 100, 200 a go sometimes for some of the bigger ones. So it's only 3, it is 3, but within those 3, there's so much variety because of our processing techniques and because of our kind of engine that we've built.
Well, while you play us another sound, I'll think of another pointed question.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll go back up to...
the one thing I was going to ask actually. Yeah. So, is it Kontakt Player or Kontakt Full you need?
No, it works in Kontakt Player. It's all good. You just any version of Kontakt above 6.7, whether it be Player or Full, it will work. And yes, so let's try a different sound. Let's go with. I'm going to try and refine this down a little bit. Let's go with pads and. Let's try this one. So we do have a few sounds in there that are fundamentally atonal, which have been kind of twisted into a particular tone or made use of a particular tone. So this, for example, is I think it's a sample of a tray, like a metal tray with balls on it being bowed or something. I can't remember exactly what John did, but
Oh, that's lovely.
it's nice, right? So that is a sample of a tray.
Okay, so what happens? So you wake up in the middle of the night and go, I know, let's try this.
I've got a very musical set of cookware, I think. Yeah, that's what John was thinking. No, I mean, it's just, it was literally the case of what can we do that is different to what's already out there that makes a bit of a mark.
So it sounds like bowing is quite a big...
Bowing is a fundamental aspect of this particular instrument. However, that said, we think to call it a bowed instrument would be a little bit of a, like, that's not correct. That would be a little bit of a misnomer.
Right, it's just
so
that's where your starting point.
That's the original starting point. There was a lot of bowed stuff. And then there's also kind of bowing considered in some of the sounds as well. So one of the sounds, if I just go to here, if I go here and I just load up, which is a fairly default sounding thing.
I mean, these load fast, obviously, because
They
it's
do
small
load
amounts.
fast, yeah.
I suppose you could load the whole lot into RAM on most modern computers these days.
Very possibly. I mean, I don't know exactly how that works from a kind of technical point of view. You'd have to ask our developer. But so this sound, for example, was not actually bowed, but it was made using bowing as a consideration. So this was kind of an idea of what might it sound like if you were able to bow a voice. Like, what would that possibly sound like? So it was kind of not necessarily physically modelled, but the sound design was kind of considering that throughout the whole thing. So let's hopefully what I've just done will work. So you can hear some of those vocal formants starting to come in the lower range. So to call it a bowed instrument wouldn't be necessarily correct. If I was to stick, instead of a hand, if I was to stick like a picture of a violin or a viola on there, that wouldn't really be correct, which is why we've gone with a kind of just something that captures the vibe instead of something that is more descriptive.
Right,
that's what the whole UI is designed to be.
So obviously it's available now. It's been out for some time.
Yep.
What's the sort of... people buy it directly from you online?
People buy it directly from us. You go to voidandvista.com and you can just purchase it. It's like or you can do it through ShopPay, PayPal, like however you want.
What's the price?
It's £129.
Right, okay.
Which we think is a really fairly priced for the amount of stuff that you're getting, and makes it as accessible as we can afford it to be.
And more from you coming up in the future?
Very much so. Can't talk about it specifically, but yes, we're just getting started.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right.